The Lindbergh Schools Board of Education meeting number 1535 is now called to order. Meetings are now fully open and in person, as well as live stream on the district's YouTube channel. Just as a reminder to everyone in attendance, and according with the St. Louis County COVID-19 guidelines, fully vaccinated individuals are not required to wear face covering, which includes the group up here, and face coverings are still required for all unvaccinated individuals. So 2.0, do we have any additions, deletions, corrections?
We do not.
Okay. So approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Jen, second by Mike or Matt? Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And now we will stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to call up our ECE students who are present, Forrest and Amelia Cardwell. If you'd like to come up front and help us with the pledge there. And they're adorable if you can't see them. You guys ready? Turn and face your audience
Face
there.
there.
Turn around, guys, and look at Mom and Dad. Okay.
Ready?
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Great job. That's a great job. And now we'll move to 4.0, which tonight we are recognizing ECE, a couple of our fine students there, and gifted education as well. So first I'd like to introduce Dr. Charlene Ziegler, principal at ECE, and she will present our ECE recognitions.
Okay. Would you like to start with teacher of the year? Facing the board. Okay, we have our teacher of the year and our support staff of the year. And we also have two of our pre-K students who are headed off to kindergarten, and they represent ECE very well. First of all, I'm going to talk about Tracy Austin. She's our support staff member. Tracy has been at ECE almost as long as I have, since 1996, and she's served in many positions over the years and has done an amazing job in every position. She's currently the lead facilitator in the 2- and 3-year-old classrooms, and what I consistently hear when we have visitors in the building, when we used to have visitors in the building, is how amazed they are at how quickly her 2-year-olds learn how to do those things that we do at school, to follow directions and sit in a group and to be independent. She does an amazing job of that, and we're really lucky to have her with us. She has a great relationship with her families and her students, and she's certainly a leader in our building. Tracy, will you come up?
Gift certificate to our online Spiritware store, so congratulations, and thank you for all that you do for our youngest learners. We really appreciate it. We're going to get a picture real quick.
Oh, you want me?
Yeah.
Okay, and next is our Teacher of the Year, Katie Tharina. Katie has also been with us for a very long time, but not quite as long, since 2008. Katie started with us as a part-time staff member and has continued with us over the years. She teaches in a 3- and 4-year-old classroom. 3- and 4-year-old classrooms are pretty tough, and Katie has the energy to keep up with those guys. She is constantly doing some sort of dancing or action movements with her kiddos. Her kiddos love her. She's great with active learning and supporting students to help build their confidence. She sees all of her students as the individuals that they are, helps them grow, make friends, and become leaders in their play scenarios. Her room is always doing something fun, and her students and families love her. Katie, will you come up? And finally, last but not least, Forrest and Amelia Cardwell. Come on up, guys. We have the whole Cardwell family here. The Cardwell family is an ECE family. We've had the Cardwells with us for 9 years, through all 4 kids. Forrest and Amelia are in the Hippo room. They were together this year, and I'm sure that they loved being together. Miss Janice would have loved to be here tonight, but she was unavailable. So Forrest and Amelia are headed to kindergarten at Concord, and they are representing ECE for us tonight. So I asked them earlier what they were looking the most forward to for kindergarten. And do you remember your answer, Amelia?
Recess.
Recess. Forrest, do you have another answer for us?
About what?
What are you looking forward to in kindergarten? Is it recess?
Recess.
Recess seems to be the consensus, and the older sisters, I think, have helped them out with this. All right. Well, thank you, Forrest and Amelia, for coming here tonight for us and being our ambassadors.
So Forrest and Amelia, we have a certificate with your name on it. So here's this for you, Forrest. Thank you. And Amelia, this is for you. And thank you for being here. Hang on, I got something else for you. Amelia, hang on. Forrest, I got something else. Now, you guys may have to grow into these a little bit, but we got you some flyer t-shirts. So
That's a tough act to follow right there. So now I would like to introduce Tracy Bednarik. She's the Gifted Education Coordinator, and she will present for Gifted Education. Tracy?
Thank you for your continued support of Gifted Education at Lindbergh. I'd like to start with recognizing our support staff person of the year for 2019-20, and that's Mrs. Kathy Page. So if you could come on up. We're not roasting you, so it'll be fine. So, okay. So Kathy has been with the district for 27 years and currently serves as the Gifted Department Administrative Assistant. I'd like to share a few things that members from our department shared regarding Kathy's hard work and commitment to the Gifted program. Kathy does so much for the entire Gifted program. I don't know how we would function as a group without her. She's our go-to person for any questions or help that we need. She really is the hub of the Gifted program. She's amazing, kind, friendly, helpful, and always willing to step up for whatever needs to be done. Her focus is on our children, and she constantly works to make sure that they have everything they need. She does the same for our teachers, and her support makes our job easier and improves the opportunities for all students. Personally, I'm so fortunate to work with Kathy every day. She knows the history of our program and uses that knowledge to help guide the program toward a promising future. She is present physically, mentally, and emotionally, and so reliable. And finally, she knows that play and fun are important. She's always willing to give my fun ideas or a try, even if they're a little bit weird, and I ask her to dress up as a gnome. But we're also grateful to have her as part of the Gifted program. So thank you, Mrs. Kathy Page.
Kathy, congratulations. And again, we have a certificate and a gift certificate to our online Spirit Wear. I want one of those flyers. I know, I think there's one. You can get an adult size one.
And for our 2019-20 Teacher of the Year, I'm proud to introduce Dr. Mike Kuhn, if you'd like to come up. I'll move back a little bit, but okay. So Mike has been with Lindbergh Schools for 29 years, most recently serving as the Elementary LEAP Gifted Teacher and Gifted Department Testing Coordinator. We are happy and sad to announce that Mike just recently retired, but we know that his influence on the gifted department will be long-lasting. These are a few things his colleagues said about him that speak volumes to the impact he has had on Lindbergh gifted students. Mike is a trusted colleague. He values interpersonal relationships and has strong connections with students, parents, co-teachers, and others in the district. He models the importance of being a lifelong learner and regularly seeks out and shares resources and ideas to supplement and enhance our curriculum. He develops and provides engaging courses and lessons to meet the diverse needs of gifted learners. He's an effective communicator and reflective practitioner. He uses his vast experience and continues to evolve as a teacher and pushes himself to grow in pedagogical knowledge and practice. They said a lot. Mike never backs down with dealing with a challenge or a difficult conversation. He puts students first while acting with empathy and professionalism. And on a personal level, in my role as testing coordinator, Mike has been such an asset to me as I took on this role as gifted program coordinator. His guidance, patience, and insight have been invaluable. Mike carries those skills to the work he does with his students. He teaches them to understand their giftedness and helps them develop strong self-efficacy. I'm very thankful to have to learn from him in the past 2 years. Thank you, Dr. Kuhn.
All right, so congratulations, first of all, to all the recipients. It's so great when we see the work of the amazing educators and, you know, the students and staff, and frankly, that's what we're all here for. So congratulations again to each and every one of you, well-deserved. And with that, I will allow you a few minutes here. We'll take a little break so you can leave and not,
You can go out that door, right?
yeah, you can go straight out that door. So we'll take a couple-minute break and allow you guys to leave and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you. All right, so we'll move now to 5.0, which is consent resolutions and commendations. We have 3 consent resolutions this month. 5.0101, which is Teacher of the Year, Dan Doherty from LHS. 5.0102, Support Staff Person of the Year, which was Jessica Franklin, the District Lead Nurse. And 5.0103, which is the resolution for the graduation class of Lindbergh High School. So do I have a motion to approve the resolutions honoring Teacher of the Year, Support Staff Person of the Year, and graduating class of Lindbergh High School?
So moved.
Motion by Kathy, second by Mike. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. That'll take us to 6.0, which is citizen comments regarding agenda items. And we do have a few here. And before we get to that, we do have one item that people are speaking about, which is an agenda item when we received questions and comments from the public about under item 9.09, which includes a contract for professional learning with Core Collaborative. So before we bring the speakers up, I just want to address this to the entire community. The facilitators of this learning are Floyd Cobb and John Cronapple, who authored a book called Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity. These individuals have spent many, many years studying and implementing equity work, and our administrative staff has dedicated significant time, and I've heard about it and seen it, researching and vetting their approach. So what they appreciate and what we all appreciate about the Core Collaborative is their approach has evolved over time. So Cobb and Cronapple openly admit that traditional approaches to equity and inclusive work, including critical race theory, are outdated. By contrast, their book explores what it means to support a school culture where every student feels a sense of dignity and belonging, and every student feels equally included. They enforce the importance of building meaningful student relationships, which is extremely important, and they focus on that. So all of us on the board, we care deeply about Lindbergh students and want to give them every possible tool to succeed, every one of them. We want every single student to feel appreciated, validated, accepted, and treated fairly in their schools and in our community. So that's all what I have to say about that. So now we'll hear citizen comments regarding topics that were on the agenda. When I call your name, please come forward. Repeat your name if you don't mind, and the agenda item you will speak about. We will limit it strictly tonight to 3 minutes. When you come up here, we should be able to put the clock here on the board. We will take any comments under advisement and respond at a later date. So we will start with, let's see here. We have is that? Okay. Okay. So, well, so Mackie Randleman, yeah, she's going to speak on the Core Collaborative.
Mackie Randleman. Earlier today, the board and I had email communications where I raised serious concern of this new program also being CRT. Thankfully, the President, Mr. Shamia, responded back and explained to me that Lindbergh will not implement CRT program. So, Mr. Shamia, thank you for clarifying this to me earlier. As you can see, the education of my children is very important for me. I found this district 9 years ago on schooldigger.com while we were still in Israel. We searched for a house to rent in this district according to the academic excellence. I am grateful for the best education that I could provide for my children. I came across the video of Core Collaboration where Mr. Cronapple mentions that AP classes are part of traditional school culture where students could feel excluded. This comment might be a personal opinion and not in the program that Lindbergh purchases, but I would like to clarify that we are here in this district for the best education. I would like the district to confirm that it will not eliminate AP, honors, and challenge classes. To me, it is elimination of academic diversity. We all look different. We all have different abilities, skills, interests, and needs. School should meet the students where they are and bring each one of them up. School should teach students to honor their classmates although they look different or have different abilities. I would like to ask the board to provide the actual curriculum of the training, the phases plan, or also oversight committee of parents from different groups would guarantee transparency. After what we went through with EEC and identity activity, I would like the district to provide the transparent information as much as possible for our community members. Maybe it might be wise to postpone the vote until such transparency is achieved. Thank you.
Okay, next, and I just want to repeat, if you're speaking on the same topic and you don't have some sort of different perspective, you can let us know, but we'd appreciate if you are speaking on the same or similar topic, just bring a fresh perspective to the podium. So next will be Martha Duchow, also on Core Collaborative.
Thank you. I am a lifelong learner, so I take responsibility to educate myself on issues where my understanding is weak, which is how I came to read this book, Cynical Theories: How Activist Scholarship Made Everything About Race, Gender, and Identity, and Why This Harms Everybody. It gave me perspective on the cultural phenomenon of social justice theory and allowed me to read the proposal from Core Collaborative in a new light, especially given that John Crownapple's approach focuses on social justice. Social justice theory has evolved from its roots in postmodern scholarship and academia to social activism and finally to its current status as a full-fledged belief system that has thus far avoided rigorous debate, in part due to the social stigma of challenging its tenets, and asks instead that we take its assertions on faith. The authors of the book point out that, quote, because the social justice movement is not officially a religion, and because genuine social justice aims are in keeping with anti-discrimination legislation, it has been allowed to bypass the usual barriers to imposing one's belief system on others. As liberals, with a small l, we must object to this imposition and defend people's right to disbelieve in social justice without incurring any form of punishment. While all public institutions and organizations have a right to require their students, employees, or users to refrain from discrimination and uphold equality, they should not be able to require an affirmation of the creed of social justice. While reading the contract, I was struck by how much the section on leadership and outcomes resembled the structure of a religious organization with its own disciples, preachers, church, gospel, and faith. The contract isn't so much a proposal for professional development as it is a proposal to evangelize Lindbergh School's employees in social justice teaching. Just recently, the district was challenged on its use of sex education materials provided by Thrive, a religiously affiliated organization. What implications does this previous challenge and the district's response have for the contract with Core Collaborative, a company aligned with social justice belief systems, popular culture's new religion? Social justice theory has spawned a billion-dollar industry supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion training. No doubt there's lots of money to be made in imposing the social justice belief system and institutions, but the question for this board is whether spending $47,000 on Core Collaborative contract is the highest and best use of taxpayer funds. Please consider tabling this vote until after you've had a chance to read this book, gain a more robust understanding of the origins and implications of social justice theory, and learn about alternative prescriptive solutions that rely less on dogma and more on scientific and practical methods. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Next speaker is Kayla Vaughn. I hope I said that right. Social Studies Curriculum on Communism.
Yes, thank you. My name is Kayla Vaughn, and my son attended Lindbergh Schools in the PEGS program and received a wonderful education, and I appreciate that. And he did learn a lot about social justice as a student here, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm trying to get my head around all these terms that are being thrown around, because to me it's pretty simple. It's like, do we want to have children educated about the truth? We have a lot of things that have happened in our history in this country that are not pleasant, but they are true. I grew up not in this locality, but in a place in the 1950s and 60s in the Deep South. I no longer have my accent because I wanted people to take me seriously when I came up here. But I want to tell you that it's only been as an adult and as a retired adult with time to read that I've learned about literal massacres that happened practically in my neighborhood post-Reconstruction era. I've learned a lot of information that I did not learn in school, and I understand why, because I grew up during a time that, our social studies teacher talked about communists hiding under every bed. Our social studies, our American history text where I went to school, a public school, was Masters of Deceit by J. Edgar Hoover. It was a travesty. I experienced a propagandistic public education. There's no excuse for that today, okay? There's no excuse. We know what kind of things happened in our history. Do we want to hide this from the children? Do we want to hide facts? Do we want to hide history? Because, that's ridiculous. We want our children educated so that they don't make these sorts of mistakes, so that they know the kinds of things. You can't build for the future without learning from the past. These things happened. They did. We're not talking about dwelling on it to make people feel bad. We're talking about educating children so that they know what happened in this country's history. So I would really encourage you not to be hoodwinked by a bunch of just gobbledygook talk about people being upset about changing the curriculum. Teach the kids what they need to learn.
Our next speaker, okay, if we could hold up pause just a little here for our next speaker, Kathy Lewis, same topic, the social studies curriculum.
Yes. I moved to the Lindbergh School District after my kids were out of high school. So my kids didn't go to school here, but I do live in the Lindbergh School District. And I was a teacher for 36 years. And I feel like it's so critically important for diverse voices to be heard. And as I look around the room, I just see such a majority of white faces. And I feel like all voices need to be heard. And I feel like that teachers need to have some freedom in their curriculum, because these teachers are educated to be able to broaden people's perspectives so that we can learn from each other's experiences and learn from history and learn what has really happened. I didn't learn about the Japanese internment camps until I was an adult. I didn't learn about Juneteenth until I was an adult. I didn't learn about the Tulsa Massacre until I was an adult. I didn't learn about the riots in East St. Louis until I was an adult. And I continue to read too, and I am so grateful to the people who are writing both children and adult books on history in the United States so that we can have a critical perspective on what happened here and have discussions with diverse voices. So that's really what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And our last agenda item speaker is Dennis. I don't have a last name here on 8.02, the social studies curriculum as well. Is Dennis here?
I think he might be in the hall still. Kayla's going to get.
Give her a seat up.
Yes.
to speak, because somebody already spoke for him.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, so again, I want to thank you, everyone who spoke, for coming tonight and addressing the board, and we will respond to everyone's comments. And at this time, we'll move back further with the business portion, which 7.0 is communications. 7.01 is calendar of events, so Board Secretary Christy Watts.
All righty, so there's not a lot going on. School is not in session. Starting June 11th, our district offices will be closed on Fridays through July. June 14th, high school summer school begins. June 30th, we're having a special meeting for the Board of Education at 10 a.m. It is here. And then for the July 4th weekend, July 5th, the district office is closed as well. Our next board meeting will include a workshop. The workshop will be starting at 4:30. Our meeting's on the 13th, starting at 4:30. And then our regular board meeting will follow at 7. And both meetings are open to the public, if anyone would like to attend. I think that's it.
Perfect, thank you. 7.02 is the time when any board member can essentially report on any meetings they've attended, whether virtually or in person, those being state meetings, other meetings, parent group meetings, anything related to the business that we do here. So if anybody has anything they'd like to talk about?
So last month, I attended the St. Louis School Board's community professional learning community meeting, which was a group of around 38 regional board members within the area meeting to talk about ways that we can collaborate together to do what's best for all of our schools and all of our students. And so it was just an opportunity for all of the school board members to come together and learn from one another. And a lot of the things that we spoke about were current legislation and moving forward kind of post-COVID and what that looks like in our schools. And just really keeping ourselves informed to understand, especially with the legislation that's impacting public schools, in a way that we can come together within a region to just protect our public schools and the systems and the students within them. And so just looking at unifying efforts for advocacy. And it was really great to see so many board members within our region that just really care about students and really care about the schools. And I'm excited to continue learning from all of them. So, thanks.
Good stuff, thank you. Anyone else? Kathy?
Yeah, I just wanted to publicly thank, especially since Dr. Cochran is here, for a fantastic graduation. I know it's different than we've had in the past, but it was great. And thank you to Dr. Lake and all of the personnel who were involved in there. It was a wonderful evening. Thank you.
It certainly was, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. We'll move to 7.03, which is announcements. We do have one announcement regarding our Board Advisory Committee and applications for those, and Dr. Lake.
Sure. So about 3 years ago, we established board advisory committees to engage our community and our work in the district to be open and transparent. When this board interviewed me, except for Megan, she's new, that was a priority for them to engage our community, to listen to our community. And so we created 5 board advisory committees that have patrons on them, have teachers on them, have students on them. They meet pretty regularly, 6 to 7 times a year, and they really guide and help us with our work. These conversations that you are here speaking tonight about publicly, there are parents and teachers and folks sitting there having conversations, and we don't make decisions in a vacuum. We make them very public because that's what we want. And so I would encourage you that these opportunities to be on these board advisory committees, applications will come out in July, and then we'll select those and get those new committees set up. It's a 2-year commitment of service, so that way we can kind of get some momentum with people. We don't turn the entire group of the advisory over. It's about half the advisory group every other year. And so we've been very pleased with that work over the last 3 years since we've been here, about really getting more involvement with our community and making sure more people know what we're doing and why we're doing it. So, Mike, anything on that?
No. Yeah, well, I will reinforce in what I said earlier, there's other ways to get involved, and this is an exceptional way to get involved. we've all up here been part of these committees, and, we appreciate the residents, parents, whomever that get involved and participate and provide their input, because it's valuable for the district, and it's really a great learning process for all those people that get involved, especially for the first time. So I encourage anyone to apply and get involved where you can. 7.04, review of upcoming Board of Education meeting agendas. Again, Board Secretary Christy Watts.
All right, so we're going to review those meetings we just talked about. The next Board of Education meeting is scheduled for 10 a.m. on June 30th, and our discussion topic will be the 2021-22 budget. So we'll be voting that in on June 30th at 10 a.m. In July, as we talked about before, the 13th starts with a workshop, and that is where we will have our conversations about the district's equity work. We will have Floyd Cobb and John Crownapple from Core Collaborative here talking to us, and they're the authors of the book that Mike showed you earlier, Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity. Following that workshop, we will go into session for our regular meeting at 7 p.m. And on there, we have 3 for the record reports, library media services, Title I evaluation, and the transportation program evaluation. Items will also be presented to the board seeking approval to include approval of minutes, human resource personnel report, financial items, and then our Board of Education calendar of events for the 21-22 year. Again, all these meetings are open to the public, and you're more than welcome to attend.
Perfect, thank you. 7.05, we have no board member appointments. That takes us to 7.06, which is, I'm sure, why everybody has attended tonight, the MSBA board report, which we will now watch the June report.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of June. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the recently completed regular session of the Missouri General Assembly, a session that included the passage of a bill establishing the state's first ever tax credit voucher program. The bill initially authorizes $25 million in tax credits for donations to what's called an education assistance organization that would provide scholarships to students attending home, private, virtual, or public schools. MSBA strongly opposed the bill for allowing taxpayer dollars to be used to pay fees and tuition to private or home schools that are not accountable to the public. Despite that disappointing vote, there were some successes during the session, including the defeat of legislation that would have expanded charter schools beyond St. Louis and Kansas City, and attempts to move school board elections to the November general election date. MSBA Associate Executive Director for Advocacy, Mike Reed, says school board member contacts with legislators made a difference on those and other issues.
And I really appreciate all of our members going out and hammering their representatives and their senators about that bill, and in fact, hammering them on the ESA bill. After the ESA bill passed the House, I was told by more than one representative, that's it. We're not going to pass another education bill because we don't want to be hammered by our constituents. So our members did a great job in getting the word out. We just need to keep holding representatives and senators' feet to the fire to make when they say they're representing education and they're trying to help your district, make sure that they are.
MSBA's positions on state and federal education issues are determined by the Delegate Assembly that will be meeting this coming November. If your school board has a position statement on an issue you would like to submit to the Advocacy Committee for consideration, you can do so. The Advocacy Committee reviews those proposals and makes recommendations to the Delegate Assembly that determines MSBA's positions on the issues. The deadline for submitting a new or revised position statement is September 1st. Economic development tax abatements given to businesses cost Missouri public school districts more than $130 million a year in fiscal year 2019, according to data collected by a group called Good Jobs First. MSBA has advocated for many years to reform tax abatements that have a significant impact on school district revenue, including allowing local voters the opportunity to opt out of tax abatement projects impacting funding for public schools, and giving school boards veto power over their portion of any tax abatement project. Good Jobs First Executive Director Greg Leroy tells us that rather than granting tax abatements, investing in schools is the smart economic development strategy.
If you disinvest your public sector, and obviously at the top of the list is schools, but it also means infrastructure and parks and quality of life and public safety now with the pandemic. If you disinvest the public sector, you make it hard to attract reinvestment in the private sector, right? Because if you're expecting to attract companies with good jobs in the information age technology now, you got to have great schools. You're not going to attract families to transfer into an area with marginal schools, for example, or marginal quality of life.
Leroy urges school boards to advocate for their revenue sources.
I think that school board leaders are uniquely positioned to become business climate crusaders for Missouri. I think you can make a very compelling case that by defending funding for schools and in protecting the quality of your schools, by protecting your funding base, you can grow the state's economy better than giving away the store.
Good Jobs First is a nonpartisan, nonprofit group that promotes accountability in economic development. It's no secret that teachers are the biggest school-based factor in student success and the single most influential component of an effective school. And it's also no secret that recruiting and retaining teachers remains a significant challenge for school districts throughout Missouri and the nation. That's especially true as we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic. To help address the issue, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has announced a $50 million investment to grow Missouri's teacher workforce. That money is available through federal COVID-19 relief funds. DESE will make $10,000 grants available to school districts to establish or expand Grow Your Own programs that encourage high school students to consider teaching as a career, along with grants to implement strategies designed to improve teacher retention. We recently spoke to a graduating senior who plans to become a teacher, Marion Benion from the Camdenton School District.
I've loved, being at school and just experiencing that. I've had a lot of opportunities being able to teach other people, and being able to help other people reach their full potential has just been really insightful to me. Just helping people find their passions is just what I've been really focused on, and that's what I want to do.
Marion was among the students who participated in a signing ceremony for those graduating seniors in Camdenton who are pursuing a college degree in education. MSBA encourages Missouri students to consider pursuing a career in education. Make your plans now to attend the 2021 MSBA Annual Conference in cooperation with the Missouri Association of School Administrators to be held November 4th through 7th in Kansas City. The event will once again feature more than 100 sessions and workshops, many presented by school leaders from districts throughout the state, all in our new location at the Kansas City Convention Center. Registration information for the conference will be posted on the MSBA website. And don't forget the 2021 Safe Schools and Colleges Forum, sponsored by MSBA's Center for Education Safety, that will be held this year on November 4th in conjunction with the annual conference in Kansas City. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
All right. So 8.0 is special reports. This is when we get our cabinet updates regarding the committee meetings that they chair. So Joelle, I think you have a finance meeting to report on.
Yes, we did have a finance committee meeting that's held the week before the board meeting, where we have members of our committee that have made application and are really in the finance world. Come look at our board items prior to the board receiving the agenda packet. We have board members on that committee as well. It just is a preempt to it coming to the board for official at this meeting. This was a busy month for finance. It is the end of the fiscal year and the beginning of starting to get ready for the next. So we had quite a few bids, some construction bids, some change orders, and the committee reviewed each one of those. We go through all the items. And this month I took an item that I'm planning to bring to the next board meeting to get their input even earlier. So that's what the meeting's about, and it went well.
All right, thank you. And Dr. McKinney, HR.
HR did not meet this month. We did email out the personnel report, but we are scheduled to meet on July 8th, which is the Thursday before the July board meeting. We'll resume our meetings then.
Thank you. So 8.02, we have a curriculum update. It's the Lindbergh High School Social Studies curriculum related to communism, and Dr. Zagora, I believe.
Thank you. Well, thanks for the opportunity tonight to share the work of our excellent social studies teachers. Recently, we received communication and resources from a group called Victims of Communism, and thought that we'd take this opportunity to share the work that we do and share it through a lens of how our social studies curriculum is structured, and in particular, how we can take a singular concept like communism and really show our community how it is that we engage our students. So I'm excited to highlight the important work our teachers do to ensure that our graduates become advanced critical thinkers. Next slide, please. I thought it was important to start with why we teach social studies. So what you see here are what we call lifelong learning goals. These are goals that were drafted by our social studies teachers in grades 6 through 12. These have been in existence for a handful of years, and if you have students in our schools, they've probably seen these on posters in on the walls of their social studies teachers' classrooms. So our why, and when we talk about teaching social studies, I think for those of us that are educators in a public school, we recognize that there is a civic purpose to our public schools. And so especially when we talk about our social studies curriculum in those classrooms, our goal is really to develop a citizenry that is knowledgeable and has the skills to carry out a system of government and a nation that is built upon the power of the people. And so in providing this kind of education for our students, we make sure that our students are likely to become engaged, active citizens. But I think even more than that, not just that they are engaged, but they are the type of informed citizenry that can make sound decisions, can make evidence-based decisions, can support their claims with evidence and strong reasoning, can sort fact from fiction, and can understand a very complex nation and world that we live in. And so what you see here in these lifelong learning goals is that this is who we want our graduates to be if they've spent their education here with us in Lindbergh schools, that by the time they graduate from high school, they can go into the world and they can make informed decisions because they have these skills here. Next slide, please. So our curriculum is, of course, built upon the Missouri Learning Standards. And if you've ever looked at the Missouri Learning Standards, they are many, many pages long. So what I have here is really just a sample of a handful of standards that apply specifically to teaching something like the concept of communism. So these standards are taken from the 6th through 12th grade document. These show up in all grade spans 6 through 12. Some of them show up multiple times. They show up for specific courses like world history, US government, United States history. And so in highlighting just some key pieces there, first of all, you'll notice that they don't mention specific concepts or topics. They don't even mention specific events in history. What they really are broad understandings of how to interpret the world around us. So we can take a topic like communism, for example, and we can see how it would fit into a number of the Missouri Learning Standards. Everything from understanding different economic systems, our government's role in those economic systems, what happens when our governments or economic systems fail to do what they have promised to the people. And I even put the example in there of what causes and patterns of human rights violations and genocides, because one thing that we understand and that we teach to our students is that those events don't occur in a vacuum, that they're very closely linked to very broad systemic issues where they occur. So when we get into the specifics, when we develop a Lindbergh curriculum, we start with these Missouri Learning Standards. And then we develop our own local curriculum that is full of the evidence and the skills that our students need in order to be able to do these things. And that's what you'll see on the next slide, please. So here we have some examples, and I selected these courses in particular because while concepts like communism and socialism are introduced in middle school, by the time our students get to high school, it's a much deeper dive into understanding these topics. And in particular, with our high school curriculum and state requirements, our Lindbergh graduates are guaranteed to have completed these 3 courses. So these are courses that all of our students would take. They take a world history course in 9th grade, a U.S. government and politics course in 10th grade, a U.S. history course in 11th grade, and then the vast majority of our students go on then in 12th grade to take any one of a number of social studies electives that they can choose from psychology to contemporary issues to law, and many students take more than just one of those electives. So I've provided some examples that you would see in our curriculum for each of these courses. So in our world history course in 9th grade, which is more of a modern world history course, they will start with a comparison of economic systems, and it's in particular in advance of learning about something like the Russian Revolution, which is a major world event with impacts far-reaching beyond the nation in which it occurred. And then also a broad coverage of the Cold War from a global perspective. So for example, in a world history class, you may have students that are doing a deep analysis of Churchill's Iron Curtain speech. You'd have students that are learning about many events throughout the Cold War, like proxy wars in Korea and Vietnam, a study of the killing fields in the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, all the way up to modern issues like the United States' relationship with China today and the struggle for freedom in China. So that's just an example of what you would see in a world history course. Again, we're talking about covering a lot of years in a short period of time, so you're going to get events and topics related to communism quite a bit in that course. In the U.S. government course, we again do a comparison of economic systems, but the example here would be how does it apply to the United States? So we're in 10th grade, this is where we really dig deep to make sure that our students understand what does it mean to be an engaged and informed citizen? Why is it important that you understand the principles upon which the nation was founded? So when we talk about the development of the United States into the nation that it became, we talk about the economic system and how the founding principles of the United States of America are what align themselves with the type of free market economy that developed here, as opposed to the types of economies that developed elsewhere. We also spend quite a bit of time in 10th grade talking about students' civil liberties, and those civil liberties are often tied to their economic freedoms as well, and so that's another place where these economic systems would show up in our curriculum. And then in United States history, again, this is a survey course, so we're covering a lot of ground in a short period of time, but here you would see some of the similar themes from a world history course, but from an American perspective. And so the impact of the rise of communism on American culture and American politics. So the Red Scares that were in the post-World War eras. The Cold War, again, but this time, like I said, from an American perspective. And so taking a look at things like McCarthyism, looking at the wars in Korea and Vietnam, all the way up to contemporary foreign policy, and so how our foreign and economic policy today relates to nations whose economic systems are very different from our own, and how that plays out in foreign relations today. So again, examples of places where these show up in our curriculum, and as you can see, spiral through over the course of a few years. Next slide, please. I also wanted to take some time to make sure that we address how we teach these things. So, like you saw in the Missouri Learning Standards, you didn't see specific concepts or events listed that needed to be covered. When you look at Lindbergh's curriculum, you will see some of those specific concepts and events. But again, they're all tied back to those lifelong learning goals and those standards. And so we pull from a variety of sources, and we use a variety of instructional strategies to make sure that our students aren't just consumers of information, but that they can use that information to develop their skills to become that informed citizenry that we want them to be. So that the consumption part of it, the read, listen, watch, this is providing evidence to our students, but we are also asking that as they're consuming that information, that they're doing the other things you see here. They evaluate that information. They deliberate. You can walk into any social studies classroom on any given day, and it's very likely that you will see some kind of discussion happening, some kind of deep analysis of the information that has been provided to the students. And also, most of that information is not handed to the students. The students are finding it on their own because we ask them to research, we ask them to write, we ask them to create. And we give them the skills and the tools to do that knowledgeably. So an analysis of a document or comparing something or developing some sort of presentation for an audience, that's going to be work that the student does with the support of the teacher to make sure they're doing it effectively, responsibly, that they are using reliable sources. And so again, when our students leave us, they're on their own. They need to be able to do those skills on their own. And so we make sure that when we have them with us, that we are guiding them through that to where they can become people who can consume information and sort out what they need to know to make informed decisions. Lastly, I put on there explore because I think, and I have a personal bias here as a former social studies teacher, but I think this is one of the huge advantages of a social studies curriculum is that when we give students those tools to do things, they can go research on their own. And we can set up experiences for them that are experiences that may be a little intimidating that they wouldn't do on their own. We can bring in people for them to meet. We can take them to places to see things. We can introduce ideas that they may have never existed. And so with all of these things, some of our strategies that are very common in addition to just working with reading and writing and talking about history and government is that we have students do service projects. We have them engage in their community and put these skills to use. We have students create projects for an audience. So increasingly, and this is true across the board, pre-K through 12, the audience is no longer just the teacher. The audience is your peers. The audience is your community. And so we see that playing out in our social studies classroom quite a bit. And many of you are probably familiar with the History Alive project that has occurred in this district for many years, where we are bringing veterans from foreign conflicts or other global events live in person, pre-pandemic, into our school so that our students can meet with them one-on-one in small groups and sit down to a table and have a conversation with a veteran who fought in Vietnam and talk about that experience. And so those kinds of experiences are what excite me about moving forward and the future of our curriculum and our instruction is that the opportunities for that face-to-face engagement or even virtual remote via Zoom engagement to talk to people that have had these experiences. So it's very exciting work, and I appreciate having the opportunity to talk to you about it tonight. Do you have any questions? Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job, Ronnie.
Great job. All right, so 9.0 is our action items by consent. We have action items by consent 9.01 to 9.13. Would anyone like to remove any of these items for individual consideration? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the action items by consent 9.01 to 9.13 as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Megan. Second. Second by Matt. All right, so now we'll open for discussion or questions.
Hey, thank you, Mr. President, and I also wanted to thank Dr. Zagora as somebody with academic background in history and social sciences. That was an incredibly jam-packed, information-rich presentation in such a short time. Congratulations on that. I did want to speak to one of the action items in this consent agenda, and I know it's the one that's been spoken about already we've had several speakers come up and discuss it. And that is what Lindbergh is looking to do in terms of engaging the core collaborative group. Now, we have as a board, and I think this was mentioned, been discussing this for quite a while now, several months, in terms of, where might we go with this? We have looked at a variety of resources. I know a principal one has been this book, okay, which I actually encourage you, if you can, find it in the library, find it on, get it wherever you can online, to take a look at it. It's called Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity, the Keys to Successful Equity Implementation. But what grabbed me about this was, in terms of the ideas presented inside, was that the approach of these authors, Cobb and Crown-Apple, and they are basically the founders of the Core Collaborative. They're kind of the brain trust, and they're the ones who are going to be speaking in July. What I found appealing is, their method and their approach to discussing, when these discussions come up about differences, that they do it in a way that promotes more unity and dignity and not division. Okay? I think we can all agree here, and as I look out and I see so many people, I see a lot of parents I know, I see a lot of people in the community that I've known for as long as I've lived here, for quite a while now. I don't think that's anything we would want to see happen in Lindbergh, is this creation or encouragement of more division. I think this could be, and the ideas in here could be put into practice to help encourage, a culture of, as they say, belonging, but just as a culture where everybody feels respected, okay? What I'm also very impressed by is that what in their method, as I've seen it, they're not taking people, groups of people, that is groups, people, dividing them out into groups, and for comparative reasons, contrasting, and then oftentimes, in some cases, even, following up with judgments leading to condemnation and dehumanizing, okay? They're not about dehumanizing. And I know that has been a concern of many who, hear about the issues going on now that are being taught in our schools. And, I would say that, as we proceed tonight and we engage this group in a very hopeful way, we're going to be cognizant, we're going to be watching what goes on. We're going to be watching because, we're a board that was elected by you, and we owe it to you to be accountable, okay, and to build trust in this community, not division, trust, okay? So we're going to be doing this in a way that's going to see constant public engagement, and I encourage all of you, be involved, get involved, come to these meetings, come to this presentation. And, we're not here to teach what is, sort of the term now out there, critical race theory, is something that is going to, promote oppositional relationships. We're not here to do that. I will always oppose that, and I know this board and this administration does not feel that way. So going forward, again, we have a great deal of promise here. Let's look at it as we move along. If we find that it's not quite aligning with what we had envisioned, we can always make changes, we can always make adjustments, okay? And I would also say this, if any of this, I know we keep hearing this, so much of this is going on in many school districts, but I know there's parents and there's parents of alums and so forth out here, but if you hear anything, say that's going on in Lindbergh, or something's brought to you that it looks like something is going on where somebody, because, they've been told that, because of their background and simply who they are, they have less worth or value than somebody else. Let somebody know about that. If you see that going on in a classroom, let your building principal know. If you don't feel like that's being addressed for whatever, or addressed, I should say, let others know. I would even say let us know, because we're here representing you. We're here representing parents. We're also here representing a larger community as well. We often call that community the patrons, right? All right? The old term was taxpayer as I was growing up. But But if anything like that is found out, I mean, you know, please let somebody know. But that is not what we're doing going forward at all. So I just wanted to certainly mention this as a sort of a reassurance for purposes of building trust in our community. So with that, I'll pass it back.
Okay. Anything else? Discussions, questions? And I will add to that, I know Christy also mentioned that prior to the next board meeting in the workshop, you know, they're going to fully engage and they're going to show what their program's about and what it will involve. And we believe it aligns with where the district wants to go and how we want to get there. And it's open to the public, and so I encourage anyone who wants to attend, please do so. So hearing nothing else, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries 7-0. 10.0, individual action items. We do have one action item. Dr. McKinney, the 21-22 calendar adjustment.
Sure, a fairly minor adjustment to the calendar, but this year, Christmas and New Year holidays fall on weekend days, and we have a contractual agreement with our staff to pay them for certain holidays. Those two are included, and so to resolve this, we're reducing the end of the year by 2 days, reducing the calendar year by 2 days at the end of the school year. Fortunately, we had inclement weather emergency makeup days built in. We have an ample amount of those, and so we also have the resource of AMI instruction, virtual instruction, if we do run out of emergency days, and so we felt like this was a change that wouldn't impact the school year to any significant degree. So we're just asking for a motion to approve that minor adjustment.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the calendar adjustment as presented?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Jen, second by Christy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. 11.0 reports, we do have one for the record report, which is the board calendar of activities for 2021-2022. That's presented for your review. It'll be brought back to the July meeting, so if you have any questions, you can contact, I believe, Dr. Lake, if you have any questions regarding that. 11.03, we do have some review of some board policies. Looks like 3 policies. That's the first reading, and it'll be brought back in July also. So for that, you want to contact Dr. McKinney if you have any questions regarding those. 12.0, now we move to the citizen comments regarding non-agenda items. We do have several people signed up here. And again, as we try and do the best we can to limit time, if you are signed up for a similar topic to somebody that somebody's already spoken on and you're not bringing a new perspective, please let us know. Respect the time. If you're with a group, maybe find one person designated to speak. I do notice there's a lot of folks that have signed up again to speak on critical race theory with the inclusion and equity, and just keep that in mind. You know, it's a hot topic. It's been a national topic. Lindbergh is a locally run and governed school district. These elected representatives that sit up here, their primary goal is to do what's best for all students. I want to be very clear, Lindbergh curriculum is not based on critical race theory, doesn't promote division of any groups for any purpose, and Lindbergh curriculum aligns with Missouri's learning standards, so that's important to know. And I did write down here things that we talk about, which is important for you guys to know. Providing students with high-quality education, one that reflects and celebrates our diverse and student population, committing to creating and maintaining a welcoming, equitable, and inclusive environment while upholding high academic standards. So those are covenants that we hold dear. So we'll start here and get through as many as we can of the residents and those who haven't spoken already. Jason Fry, History and English curriculum. And then next, just to let you know, will be Katie Schlereth, just so you're prepared.
When you called my name, I thought it was like The Price is Right and everybody was going to cheer, and it was totally silent. So I live in Lindbergh School District. My kids are in Dressel, and my son is moving from Sperring up to Lindbergh High School this next school year. This morning, I got a note in my mailbox because I have a Black Lives Matter sign in my yard. I got a note in my mailbox overnight that told me that America is not racist because we voted for Obama twice. I got a feeling the person who wrote the note didn't, but I think that they intended to mean that we as a country elected a black president and therefore racism is solved. I don't think racism is solved, and I grew up in a town in Lawton, Oklahoma, which is next to Fort Sill, which is an army town. My best friend when I was a little kid was Korean. He moved here in preschool, and my best friend a few years later was a black kid, and then I moved from Oklahoma up to the suburbs of St. Louis and discovered that racism was real because I didn't even know it. I didn't know it was real. So I moved up here and I heard my white friends call my black friends the N-word, and my black friends couldn't speak up because there were 20 white people and only one of them, and I was silent because I also didn't want to get beat up and I was afraid. And I think our world has improved since then in the suburbs of St. Louis a little bit, but I don't think racism is solved yet. And I want us to live in the kind of world where I don't have to expect my kids when they're 35 to find out that every southern state that seceded from the Union before the Civil War wrote a letter to the U.S. government explaining exactly why they seceded, and all of them mentioned because white people are better than black people. And I had been told in high school that it was because of states' rights. And I found out as an adult that it was the states' rights to allow people to own other people was the main reason. I want my kids to learn that in school. And so I'm here to just say what you're doing to be more inclusive, I totally support it. But we still have a school district that's like 95% white or more, and that whatever we can do to support inclusion of everyone, regardless of their color, race, creed, ability, I support it. I'm part of a group of other parents that support it. Critical race theory is a almost 50-year-old academic theory that really is old school now. But anything we can do that helps people talk about race in meaningful ways and learn the whole truth of history rather than having to find out when they're adults, so they will speak up in defense of their friends who are not in the majority, who are not in the dominant group. And they won't feel bad about it, but they'll feel empowered from their privilege to do something good in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. We'll move forward, and now Katie has a statement from LEAD, I believe.
Hello, my name's Katie Schlereth. I'm just going to read a prepared statement for LEAD. Dear Board of Education, the members of the Lindbergh Equity and Diversity LEAD Coalition appreciate the opportunity to once again affirm our support of diversity, equity, and inclusion work at Lindbergh. In our prepared statement to the board tonight, we as an organization would like to emphasize how important this work is to support learning and the success of Lindbergh students. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a long-established motivational theory in psychology, states that humans must have certain needs met before they can function optimally. These needs are physiological, safety, belonging and love, esteem, and self-actualization. We recognize that for many students, schools play a vital role in meeting these needs during a typical school day. We simply cannot expect a student to learn optimally if they are hungry, if they are being harassed and bullied at school, or if their social and emotional needs are not being adequately addressed in the classroom, just to name a few examples. Diversity, equity, and inclusion work in our schools is a vital way to support student needs to foster optimal learning. When students from diverse backgrounds see themselves in curriculum materials, when they are given an opportunity to share with their classroom and school community about a holiday they celebrate or a family tradition, they feel seen and valued by their teachers and classmates.
Learning and celebrating individual differences as a group helps foster a sense of community, curiosity, and creativity. What better environment in which to learn? An in-depth research review of dozens of other studies on diversity conducted by the Century Foundation found that having different and divergent perspectives can create positive learning outcomes. Some of these learning outcomes include improved cognitive skills and critical thinking, an increase in civic engagement, promotion of creativity, and increased confidence when preparing for life after high school. LEAD would like to once again applaud the Lindbergh administration for making this work a priority by hiring a full-time diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator. We also recognize that there has been much confusion around DE&I in schools nationwide and in our immediate area. Therefore, we would like to ask the district to publicly remind our families of their dedication through an email or statement so that all families feel safe and valued in the upcoming school year. With respect, LEAD Coalition.
Thank you. Next, I'm not sure if this is first name or last name, but Rollis? Okay. Speaking on Lindbergh and SSD services, and Diane Dragon be next.
My name is Marcella. I had a full educational evaluation done of my daughter this year, but I didn't share it with Lindbergh, nor did I share it with SSD. Instead, I gave it to her tutor. I don't trust Lindbergh or SSD to appropriately remediate my children. You have consistently failed them and every other child who struggles to read or write. First, in general education classrooms, and then again if they do happen to qualify for SSD. For a district who pays a lot of lip service and a ridiculous amount of money on equity and inclusion, you are leaving behind the most vulnerable children that you claim to protect. What good is a mountain of books about diversity, equity, and inclusion if our kids can't even read them? Your balanced literacy curriculum fails most children, but especially the underserved in our district. Our low-income and minority children have the worst literacy rates in the entire district. How are you going to help these children? I'm paying for my children to have private tutor, but because you're not doing your job, unfortunately, I can't pay for all the other children. Some students are being victimized by your refusal to accept that your curriculum is failing students at an alarming rate. Why are we building a brand new gifted center when half our first graders can't read at a grade level? Does no one see the inequity in that? The graduating class this year had 25% of the students reading below proficiency. Those rates would be even worse if our largely upper middle class parents couldn't afford for tutors to inflate those numbers for you. Virtually everyone I know has a tutor for at least one of their children. We are not one of the best districts because of quality education, but because parents are paying for outside help. When I reached out and requested an OT evaluation, the school's response was to send me a scathing email and refuse to follow the law and conduct an evaluation. I was berated for asking for help. Rather than wasting time on money and a lawyer, I chose to pay for much-needed OT services privately. With effective services, in 6 weeks, my kids made amazing progress. And I had to take my educational goals in my hands to ensure their success. As I see it, your strengths are parents willing to foot the bill to make you look successful. Your weaknesses, including unneeded administrators and doubling down on terrible curriculum that is currently banned in several states. Our kids are not given the foundation of basic skills, and sadly, parents actually trust you when you say wait and see. While you wait, our children are becoming more demoralized, anxious, and falling further behind. We should never wait. Stop protecting a broken system, an ineffective literacy coordinator, and do better. Your literacy rates, graduation, college acceptance rates, ACT scores are all dropping. Take note and acknowledge the weakness and fix the problem before another generation of children are saddled with the burden of illiteracy. That is how you become equitable and inclusive.
Diane Dragon, and then next will be Felia Davenport.
My name's Diane Dragon.
Last month, we pointed out the community book study being done in this district on the book Overcoming Dyslexia. Despite being called out on your lack of attendance last month, not a single one of you attended again last night for the 1-hour Zoom with another local expert. It is disappointing that no one on this board can be bothered to listen to the experts being brought into this district discussing how to ensure all of our kids are taught to read. Your apathy towards over 50% of our kids struggling to read is why we continue month after month, year after year, showing up and waiting for you to acknowledge that you are the kids that you are failing. I want to take a minute to speak about the Lindbergh Schools and SSD program evaluation by Dr. Lawson I found buried in the board docs. I'm not going to go through it in its entirety, and I don't believe it was ever presented publicly. It's clear a lot of parents do not feel they are equal voices in the IEP meetings. I have attended dozens of IEP meetings in this district, and I can say with a high level of confidence that laws are broken in every single one of the meetings I've attended. Parents whose children should have been qualified for services are left in tears when they are told their child is not quite bad enough to get supports. Others are dumbfounded when they realize after years of unmet goals and lack of any meaningful progress, the plan is to simply stay the course with the same goals and the same ineffective programs. Other parents are told SSD does not have to and will not discuss the nature of services that are provided to their child. I have recorded coordinators telling parents fidelity requirements embedded in programs are mere suggestions that will definitively not be followed by SSD. It's embarrassing the harms we are allowing to occur to our most vulnerable children while Lindbergh staff looks mutely on. The survey ends with some action steps. Step 1. Organize and or facilitate IEP training for staff. I personally sat in this building at the front desk with Dr. Hamby in February of 2020 and actually proposed to provide these services to your staff. I offered to train your staff then, and I'm offering again to train your staff now. Step 2, training with SSD and Lindbergh attorneys on their IEP process with school admin. I offered that too. I would be happy to sit in on any such training by the school attorneys to both further educate myself and to make sure the information provided incorporates the parents' rights at these meetings, and to make sure the focus is on what our kids are entitled to, not simply what SSD wants to provide. Step 3 was a parent speaker series. Again, something that I would be more than happy to head up and lead for the parents in this district. For 24 years, as a criminal defense attorney, I've had a front row seat to the end result of the school-to-prison pipeline. Lives are destroyed when our future adults do not learn to read. You have the power to stop that pipeline in this district and create real equity by ensuring every child, regardless of race or socioeconomic status, learns to read. I can have a lot more impact on a child's life by ensuring their access to literacy today than trying to mitigate the damage later as they sit in a prison cell. Thank you.
Next, we have Ophelia, and then following her will be Jessica Huff.
So good evening. I'm Phalia Davenport. I'm a mom, a multiracial woman of color, and a professor. I want to give my perspective of why we need to have a 360 perspective to our educational system. I've been a professor for over 13 years and have encountered and embraced students from all walks of life. However, I have had students in my courses who knew nothing about Buffalo Soldiers, the massacres of indigenous tribes, or the fact that there are over 562 federally recognized tribes and only the Plains Indians wear headdresses, which are sacred. That African American women were also suffragettes, or about the origins of voter suppression. With the fact that indigenous and African Americans were not allowed on stage, so instead white people blackface and redface themselves to recolonize the colonized. Or that it was illegal for interracial marriages up until 1967, Loving versus Virginia. Or the fact that George Washington did not wear wooden teeth, but slaves' teeth. We care more that our children know the capitals of the 50 states, but not the origins behind the names of our states. Notice I said students, not Black students, not white students, not Asian students, not Latinx students, but students. Education should be about the mind, body, and spirit. And to fully educate our children, you must educate with a 360 perspective so students can see the full image of our history. How will they thrive in this world without an inclusive and diverse education? We need to embrace what our America looks like, what our community looks like, and what the world our children will live in looks like. We keep glorifying and deifying our history versus living in its truth. We are all imperfectly created, so why do we want to be perceived as perfect? Our history does not show our ugly truth. Instead, we tell a beautiful lie. How can we evolve as a nation and as a people if we can't sit in our truths, accept those truths, teach those truths, and learn from those truths? This land that we stand on, this nation, was created on the backs of and the blood of indigenous people and enslaved Africans. Accept it, respect it, and honor it. Stop changing the narrative, stop whitewashing the history of this nation, stop bearing the pain this country has inflicted and continuously inflicts by eradicating my ancestors' contributions to the creation and sustainability of this nation. Telling this full perspective through the various lenses doesn't erase white people, white culture, or white history, but rather enriches it, elevates it, and encompasses the full narrative. I am scared. I am scared of people who continuously see other people or create these generalizations. Many of us do this and we think we're on the righteous path, but in reality, we are no better than the one we oppose. I am scared that my daughter's education will suffer and me sacrificing my family financially to live in this district will have been for nothing. I ask that we cast our generalizations aside and come together. I ask that Lindbergh School District continue the course for a diverse and inclusive education for our children so they can go out into this world and thrive. I ask that you see me, hear me, and know that I will not give up. I have grown through this pandemic and see through a different lens now. I hold no hate in my heart for those who do not agree with me or those who do. We each walk our own path. I leave you with this quote from Dr. Maya Angelou. I have learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And lately, I feel erased.
Now we have Jessica Huff, and that will be followed by Chrissy Wegman.
Good evening, and thank you to the board for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Jessica Huff, and I am the proud parent to 3 autistic children in Lindbergh, all who receive varying degrees of support through special school district. If my kids were school-aged 50 years ago, before the inception of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, their right to a free and appropriate public education would not exist. In fact, if they were born before 1970, it is likely that doctors would have encouraged us to institutionalize them upon diagnosis, as was fairly common up until the disability rights movement helped pave the way for community integration in the 1970s and 80s. This history is not so long ago if you really think about it. While we have come a long way, much work still needs to be done to create a more equitable and accessible society for disabled people. This is why diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in school are so important to our family. I have had the wonderful opportunity to give presentations to my kids' general education classes on neurodiversity, how brains can be wired differently, and how it's simply okay to be different. I've watched young students listen to these presentations with great interest and ask how they can best interact with my child. And while it's true that disabled students have much in common with their neurotypical peers, pretending their differences don't exist is ignoring part of their identity and denying the accessibility they need to thrive. I am certain that diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives embedded into the school community and classroom setting have allowed for greater acceptance of individual differences, and students are better prepared to collaborate with people of all backgrounds throughout their lifespan. So on behalf of my kids, I would like to applaud the Lindbergh administration for making this work a priority by hiring a full-time diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator. And I look forward to the great work that will be done in this area. Thank you.
All right, Chrissy Wegman, followed by Holly Swift. Okay. Holly Swift? Okay, thank you. Julie Egan? And sorry again for any mispronunciations of names, it's difficult.
Hello, my name is Julie Egan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have a child in the district, and I would like to thank the district for prioritizing the essential work of equity, diversity, and inclusion in our community. I've been disheartened to see the backlash in neighboring districts as well as our own surrounding this subject. Every child in our district deserves to be represented, seen, and celebrated. That can't happen if students are not exposed to the diverse lived experiences and perspectives of those in their community. Each student's history, culture, and experience helps to shape them into the individuals they are. If we ignore these aspects of one another, we can't fully begin to understand and celebrate each other. The ugly reality is that racism does exist. It can take many shapes and forms, and we have families and students in our district that are impacted by it. They deserve to be represented, seen, and heard. I want my child to be a part of a community and district that learns honestly and empathetically about this problem and why it exists, rather than sweeping it under the rug. This includes learning about how our country's history has impacted non-white students. How can we expect our future generations to do better if they don't know better? How can we expect them to know better if we're not brave enough to teach our children both the good and the bad about the country they live in? We have a responsibility to show them the whole spectrum of the world around them. Our children are resilient enough to learn these truths. Our job as parents is to support our children in working through tough feelings should they arise around these subjects. But we can't demand that our schools teach a curriculum that erases the experiences of some so that our children don't feel bad. So again, I'd like to thank the district for doing what is right, for supporting all students, and for trying to learn and do better, which is the only way we'll be able to move forward from past mistakes. Thank you.
So next, Michelle Yepes, and then Scott Colbert.
Good evening. In the board document legislative update blurb about the now defeated Reading Success Bill, it explained that the bill would require all schools to provide structured literacy instruction to those children not reading proficiently K through 4, instead of current non-evidence-based and ineffective reading programs used as intervention in most schools. Dr. Lake personally, along with the school board coalition, adamantly opposed the bill. I have questions. Why is it so inconceivable to acknowledge that structured literacy program is the most appropriate method for students who are failing in the current curriculum? Balanced literacy has been repeatedly proven to be ineffective for children with reading disabilities, so why do you keep insisting on it for an option for intervention? Who benefits from this refusal to follow what has been proven to work to ensure all students can read and write proficiently? One administrator who testified against the bill in Jeff City complained that it would cost him hours and hours of extra work to learn something new. Are we really so afraid of putting in the work so all children can learn to read? The opposition to the bill used scare tactics and lies to oppose it. On Twitter, a good friend of our literacy administrator, Sarah Valter, talked about how the bill would cost millions and millions of dollars to implement. She suggested that all she really needed was more time to figure out how to rebalance the current faulty curriculum to improve current failed literacy rates. The reality is that structured literacy curriculum is available at a low cost, and some programs are free. Virtually all the programs are less expensive than the flawed programs we use now. The bill was not removing local control for core ELA curriculum, only to require evidence-based interventions. The people who were tasked to kill this bill are more interested in protecting the failed philosophy and work of an aging professor, Lucy Calkins, than those of her kind. Calkins has never had the skills or interest in teaching struggling readers like my son to be successful. She's only interested in keeping her cult-like following and maintaining a steady cash flow from her failed products, which are currently in every one of our elementary classrooms. The best result her program was ever able to deliver was a proficiency rate of 75%. I'd rather see Dr. Hamby talk about a success rate of 95% for our students K through 3 instead. It's not enough that Lindbergh has started to utilize some structured literacy curriculum in our district. We should be pushing to ensure that the benefits that we are seeing are acknowledged and advocate for change at state level for all students. This is how Lindbergh can work to ensure equity for all kids to get effective programming instead of those who can pay for it. School staff, administrators, and this board are public servants paid for by our tax dollars and elected to serve in the best interest of our children. We fully expect your vocal support for this bill next year that is designed to help the 20% or more students that are currently being failed by this district and districts all around the state. If you don't support struggling readers, we can no longer support the board and this administration.
So our next speaker is Scott, but we have 6, then after that are individuals who are residents who have not yet spoken, but it's on a same topic of critical race theory. So please be mindful of time, and if you're not bringing a new perspective to the podium, maybe if you're involved in the group together, send one representative. Thank you.
Hi, Scott Kohlberg here. I'm switching topics to masking. The question, show of hands, who has children in high school on the board? Who has children in middle school? Who has children in elementary school? Who has children in the district right now? Okay, so the rest of you need to be replaced. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and read a statement dated April 2nd, 2021 from the Department of Justice. Got a couple paragraphs here. I'm just going to get to the point. The Department of Justice will vigorously enforce federal civil rights as we continue the process of national reckoning, recovery, and healing. Civil rights protections and responsibilities still apply, even during emergencies. They cannot be waived. Federal agencies, state and local governments, and recipients of federal financial assistance are an integral part of our shared effort to uphold civil rights. So, let's get to Title 21, U.S. Code 360, BBB-3. No emergency authorized medical product can be mandated. That includes masks. You must require consent from every legal guardian. Children, we already know the children are not even vulnerable to this virus. We know that they don't really pass the virus either. Tired of it. Absolutely tired of it. You want to bet? I got the science, bud.
Please
They
keep
got
it
the science
respectful.
too, because I've been emailing these people for months. So,
If we can't keep it respectful, we have to cut
well,
short here.
hey, I'm just, keeping the peanut gallery in check. So, in addition to 360 BBB, it is illegal to mandate an unapproved medical device. That includes masks that I see a lot of these people wearing. There's a reason why it says on the box it will not stop the virus, because it won't. They already know it doesn't. There's hundreds of scientific studies that have proven it doesn't stop the influenza. I mean, this is just getting ridiculous. So, I have a letter in which I sent you all today, and I have copies here that gives the backup of the science, that even gives backup to the U.S. Title Code, and I do not give consent for my children next year. It's just an FYI. This is all for you, right here. Sergeant at Arms, anybody want to distribute this? Thank you. Peace.
All right, our next person on the list is Dennis Roach, speaking on critical race theory. He may have opted out earlier. So we'll move to Susan Murphy. And then Jennifer Bird would be next.
Yeah, I just have a different perspective as far as the equity. I just want to point out, I hope we all could agree on character. That's my whole, I appreciate what you said tonight. It should be about character. We shouldn't reduce people to melanin in our skin or body parts. It should be about character. And like my son had people, this is a pretty diverse, actually just because we don't look that different if we're all kind of white or whatever. But my son had a lot of friends that were from Albania, Bosnia, Serbia. And and he looked at people as for what they're about. And diversity, all this diversity garbage, it's about your perseverance, your character, your background, your experience, your ingenuity. It's not just, again, our thin veneer or amount of melanin. It's ridiculous. And I'm just saying, so I appreciate everything you guys said tonight, and I just hope you focus on character, because I think we all could agree on that. Because, I mean, isn't that what it's about? And then another thing, I heard Dred Scott's great-granddaughter speak, and she said, I mean, I get tired of hating, not you guys or the district, but just the country bashing America. I'm sick of that. But she even said her own people sold her people out from Liberia. So if we're going to do history, okay, let's not just bash America. So that's all I wanted to say. I just appreciate everything you do.
Jennifer Bird, and then Virginia Ashpole would be next. And then last speaker would be Julie Week, I believe. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
Thank you for taking my comments. Incidentally, I thought this was an agenda item because I thought it would fall under contracts and social studies. So, but that's an aside. So I have a lot of concerns about this idea of bringing critical race theory conspiracy over our students. I don't think there's anybody that would stand up and say, no, we don't want diversity and inclusion. How many conservatives are on your board while we're talking about diversity and inclusion? And then we're worried about equity. Equal opportunity is what I'm looking for. I think we should have equal opportunity. And I think it's kind of sad, frankly, that we haven't been having more Black history in school for a longer time. I'm fortunate. I grew up in University City. I mean, we had tree savers and then started aluminum recycling way before anybody even considered recycling paper. I was almost always in the minority in school and within my group of friends. Don't care, because it's my understanding that people are born with two fears. The only two we're born with: fear of falling, and sudden loud noises. Defensive. Every other fear is learned. And that's what racism is based in, fear. More inclusion, more diversity, more Black studies, and certainly why we don't have more discussion about Asian and African contributions to the building of this country. I don't understand that, and I'm all for that. But critical race theory, the conspiracy against our children to teach them to be racists, to teach them to divide and compartmentalize people and then treat them accordingly, that's ridiculous. Let's talk a little bit about what is critical race theory's main ideological dogmas. Designed to divide and conquer, predicated on racial divisions and a social dichotomy of victim versus oppressor. All of a particular group can be oppressed while all of another particular group are the oppressors. Seriously? Okay, persons are not individuals having unique identities. A person is only a representative of a unitive group, like a race. Okay, other oppressed groups are categorized by sexual identity, disability, religion, socioeconomic level, so on and so forth. And of course, identification with more than one oppressed group is called intersectionality. This is what we're teaching our kids so we can teach them to divide and conquer. Why don't you just get them all blood tested and they can figure out their percentage of victimhood with that? And if you're going to teach inclusion, why don't we teach about Tuskegee experiment? So maybe our students will learn why they should always very carefully watch their government, especially now. You want people to participate in an experiment. But, you know, while we're including things to be taught, teach them about the Tuskegee syphilis experiment.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't you
Jennifer.
be quiet? I'm talking. Thank you.
Next up is Virginia Ashbrook.
Hi, my name is Virginia Ashpole. Gosh, this sounds so low. I wanted to talk on a variety of things. I guess my introductory remark would be I'm a 20-year veteran, and I really do believe we live in the greatest country in the world. I think the thing that makes our country great is the Bill of Rights. We have freedom of speech. Isn't this great? We have freedom of religion. We have freedom of assembly. We have freedom to write and to bear arms. These are the things that our country is built on. Our country is built on the fact that we all have inalienable rights. And I'm fully supportive that each person should be welcomed, each person should be respected, each person should be shown dignity and should be included. But I'm very much against anything that tries to label people and not deal with them as individuals, that tries to say you're in that group or you're in that group. That is wrong. And I'm actually concerned that the diversity, equity, and inclusion is going to do that. I'm concerned that it's going to teach labeling of people. And so this kind of goes back to the very first comment you got. I would like to see transparency in this school district. I would like to see materials made available so that we can see what's being taught, so that we can see what's being trained, so that we can have a better insight. I would like to see, if parents get on the virtual school with their kids, that wouldn't be an issue, but I've been told that it is. When my high school student got the instructions on his laptop, he was told not to have anybody else present, when he was on school. And that makes me very uncomfortable. But I would like the materials to be made available, and I would like that fact to be made, sent out to the parents of the students so that they can have the opportunity to review these materials. We live in a great country. I do think that ought to be taught in social studies. I especially want our kids to learn their rights. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, right to bear arms. And there's more in there than that. Those are the ones I know off the top of my head. Forgive my social studies teacher. But that and transparency are my main issues here with the school district. Thank you.
Last speaker, Julie Week, I believe is last name.
Hello, it's actually Julie Wyke. I just married the name. I didn't even think I was going to talk. I said no on that little questionnaire, but I'm here, so I'm thankful that you'll allow me. All I can give you is my testimony and what I've gone through. I have 4 kids. 2 of them did fine at Lindbergh. They did great. They followed the rules. They walked the walk. They did great. My number 3 was in the gifted program. She was outside of the box. She wanted to do things a little bit different. I was told that she should get her GED and get out because she was not falling in line with the curriculum and she was not having much attention. That was really tough. And so we've gone a journey, and I'm not going into that, but she's doing great. She's doing fine, and praise God for that. My number 4 was watching everything. And so we have got him in Westminster Christian Academy. He's flourishing, he's getting love, guidance, and God's word. And that's been great. But I will tell you that even Westminster is doing critical race theory. And so this isn't just hitting just the public schools. You guys, this is Marxism, this is communism, this is coming alive. And we have got to step up and teach the children to love one another. The truth. What's wrong with the truth? The truth will set you free. The truth will love each other. We are broken people. We don't have perfect lives. And I want this for the children. I want the children to have a chance to have the kind of life we've had. I like their freedom. I like their choices. I want them to have what I had in this great country of ours. And I just hope, there was a woman that stood up and talked about a book on critical race theory. Thank you. I would like that to be somehow in the notes. I don't know how this goes. So if there's notes out there that she can have her book be on there, if you guys could read that book as well as the book that you are recommending to everyone else, I would have so much more respect for being open and everybody jumping in. We are here to learn and we are to support each other. Thank you so much, you guys.
In regards to that too, I just want to reiterate my initial statement was that I want to be very clear that Limburg curriculum is not based on critical race theory, and we're just trying to teach kids equity and inclusion regardless, and we're not promoting division among groups or for any purpose. We're trying to do what's best for the kids, and I think if you visit Canvas too, you can see some curriculum on there. And as far as transparency goes, in July, I'll say again, we're having an open public workshop for the equity and inclusion and diversity programs where anybody is welcome to attend or join a committee. We talked about that earlier. Get more involved. I appreciate everyone coming here and speaking tonight and addressing the board.
You won't regret this. You won't regret this. I did sign up. I didn't know that you are not allowing on agenda and non-agenda, but you will. I really need to read this. This is great stuff.
Well, I'd be glad to stay after and hear what you have to say, but we have to set some sort of boundaries here. And we said in advance you could speak on one topic, but we can talk later if you'd like. So that's what I have to say on that. I do appreciate everyone speaking. We will listen to everybody, but I also encourage you, get more involved. Join a committee, come to the open meetings, come to the workshops. They're all publicly available. So please join us. That being said, we'll move to 13.0, which is recess. As we already conducted our executive session, there's no need to move to recess. We'll go to 15.0, which is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn board meeting number 1533?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Matt, second by Jen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, 7-0, motion's adjourned.